What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Hey, here we go, friends and neighbors. What do you say? It's Monday. Yep. Hope you had a great weekend. This is Monday, June 22nd, in case you lost track of it. Again, I hope you had a good weekend and a happy Father's Day across the board. And, of course, we celebrated the first day of summer yesterday. Here we go now, jumping into a big new week here. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital and reaching out to you coast to coast on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Lots to talk about. President Obama is back at the White House. Poor guy. He just went down to play a little golf in Palm Springs, and he found himself right in the middle of the big controversy over the drought in California, with a lot of criticism about golf courses because they suck up so much water. And here he was playing golf when maybe he should have been doing something to show that he was conserving water instead of wasting it. Palm Springs, where residents use twice as much water as any other city in California, mainly because of all the golf courses. Sometimes you can't win for losing, Mr. President. Mother Emanuel AME Church down in Charleston, South Carolina, back in business yesterday. A full house to move forward and also to commemorate the memory of the 9 church members who were brutally killed last week during their Bible study class. Thousands of people thronged outside and couldn't get inside of the church. And the big controversy now in South Carolina is, will they do the right thing and take down the Confederate flag? None other than Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush both said they should take down the flag and put it in a museum where it belongs. So much to talk about today. Look forward to hearing from you on all the issues of the day. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, The Bill Press Show, and off we go.
This is The Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection equipment. UNC all personnel identified as staff and role players, CIDs, and support staff. Please, eyes, throat, and drawing protection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now? Yeah, go ahead.
This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face.
On your face.
On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
There's actually around 90
294, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends. I mean, a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Okay. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Oh, I don't hear anything. A little technical problem here. We think we are on the air. Yes, indeed. Sorry about that. The power was off in the building, and it's sort of come back on now and then. We're not really sure. But let's assuming we are on the air. We are glad to see you on this Monday, June 22nd. Hello, hello, hello. It is the second day of summer. We celebrated the first day yesterday, of course. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our studio in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and reaching out to you all across this great land of ours here on your local progressive talk radio station. Thank you for joining us this Monday. And also on Free Speech TV nationwide. If you got a satellite dish, you find us on the Dish Network or the DirecTV. And worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. And those of you dads out there, happy belated happy Father's Day. Hope you made the best of it with your family. We have, again, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. today. If things look a little ragged around here today, we just want you to know up front that, again, we lost power in the building, and one of the consequences is we have no air conditioning today, so it's about 95 degrees here in the studio. We are all dressed accordingly and trying to keep our cool and bring the show to you with lots and lots to talk about. A very moving ceremony yesterday, very emotional moment down in Charleston, South Carolina, where Mother Emmanuel reopened its doors and people turned out in huge numbers. The church was packed. There were thousands of people surrounding the church to show that despite the violence last week, the faith of these people is still strong and their commitment to their community is still and to their God is still strong, and we all move forward together with relatives of the victims there, again, celebrating the victims, and also the message is we have to put this behind them and we have to show that we are united, and that the racism that flared out and the violence last week was condemned by all, and the exception, hopefully, not the rule in the South. For sure. Very moving day, of which followed another incredible event when relatives of the victims came to the bail hearing down in Charleston, South Carolina. The bail hearing for 21-year-old Dylan Roof. He was not there in the courtroom, of course. They were in the courtroom. They spoke to him over the video cam and told their stories about how they missed their loved ones, what a tragedy this was in their lives. But at the same time, all of them spoke words of forgiveness for Dylan Roof. We've never seen anything like that, I don't think, ever in this country. So we've got all that to talk about. President Obama is back in the White House. Congress this week will be dealing with the trade issue again. Still now that the Trans-Pacific the Fast Track Authority has passed the House, it goes back to the Senate. The Senate will be voting on that as early as today or tomorrow. Peter Ogburn is back in the studio.
Hello, Bill.
So can you tell me and our audience what the hell is going on?
Okay, so look.
All right. Are we on the air?
We're on the air.
All right.
We had major...
Hello, everybody. Guess what? Here we are. Yes.
We had major storms over the weekend.
Yes.
Knocked the power out.
By the way, really, yeah.
Crazy storms.
Saturday night, thunder like I've never heard of before.
Yeah, it was nuts. So it knocked out power to not just the studio, but to the whole building. So we have no AC. And it's about 86 degrees in here right now. Mm-hmm. So, literally, for the first time ever, I'm in shorts.
I wish I had one of those fans like they had in the church in
telling you.
Charleston,
That's
South
not
Carolina.
a bad idea right about now.
Yeah, right.
And apparently, some of our equipment was reset, so that's why you didn't hear the music when we started. But our mics are working. We've got a backup player. We have everything in place. Everything's going to be fine for the rest of the show. We're just hobbling along here.
Okay. All right.
As best as we can.
All right. Now, so let me ask that. How do you like this? This is live on the air.
Live happening.
Okay. Do we have audio?
We do have audio.
Yes,
So
we do.
I mean, we could actually play some audio. Is that
Any request you have, we can do.
okay? And we do
Just for you, Bill.
Do we have music?
We do. We have whatever you need, sir.
Mm-hmm. Do we have ice cream?
We don't have ice cream.
No, we don't have ice cream.
I could use some ice cream.
Yes,
I could use some ice cream. I just want to just soak in a tub of ice cream. Yeah, fan, get him fanned.
Thank you, Cyprian. Yes, indeed. Cyprian, he's a master of all
what
trades,
can't he do?
What can? That's right.
That actually felt good, by the way.
It did.
I caught a breeze of that.
Come back, Cyprian. Come back.
Oh my God.
Well, we also over the weekend we celebrated the Nats here in Washington. The Nats are on fire. I know you could probably get tired of hearing us talk about the Nats, but boy, they were hot yesterday. 9-2. They beat the Pirates yesterday,
Yes,
right?
indeed, yeah.
And Bryce Harper started off, as Charlie Slows tells us on WJFK, starts off with a big home run the first inning.
Swing and a long drive, deep right field. Forget about it. Going. Gone. Goodbye. Into the second deck. Over the bullpen. Down the right field line. Home run number 24.
But,
He's an absolute monster.
Yeah, and the night before they got their groove back at any rate. Yeah. And it's fun. They can't. So we got lots going on today. We will have Scott Bland from the Hotline, National Journal Hotline, as he joins us every Monday. And then later we'll be joined by reporters for The Hill, for Huffington Post, and for Think Progress as well. Yeah, and we'll get right to it. But first, Peter.
All right, just a couple of other.
Oh, we don't have.
We don't
sound.
have the sounder.
Unfortunately,
for the
not that.
Okay.
So I'm just going to jump right into that. But big news, by the way, because Apple is rolling out Apple Music, and it's going to be their version of a streaming service. And if you sign up for it, you get the first 3 months for free. Doesn't cost anything. But Taylor Swift has
happy.
Taylor Swift is not happy. She put out a little op-ed in Time Magazine, of all places, where she said the reason that I'm not putting it on there is that artists aren't getting paid royalties for those first 3 months. They're not charging people.
Yeah.
So Apple, late last night, reversed their position. They are going to pay artists for their royalties for the 3-month free trial period. So Taylor Swift took on Apple and won.
That's breaking news.
That's
Young
huge
activist.
news. That's a
Yeah.
huge deal. You know, she made a point and said, "Look, I don't need the money.
No.
I've got my money. I have successful albums, but these other artists, they need this type of stuff. This is a whole new industry."
Yeah. But when
She was right.
I heard the story last night, Apple hadn't budged.
They
So
budged last night. They have given away.
Cool.
Yeah, they are going to
right.
pay those artists.
Tim Cook.
I'm telling you. Uber has a new policy that seems like it should have been put in place a long time ago. Drivers can no longer carry guns.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So, the thing with Uber is you can, anybody can drive a car. You just have to have a car.
right.
You sign up to be a part of the Uber workforce. Well, just a couple things you have to agree to, and one of them now is you cannot carry a gun. They also said that their policy prohibits passengers from carrying guns. So there you go. Your Uber ride just got a lot less dangerous.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Whatever motivated them, they did the right thing.
And big news in Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
They have raised the legal smoking age from 18 to 21. Governor David Ige, is that Ige?
I have no idea.
Governor David, he signed a
I didn't know
bill.
They had a new governor.
Yeah. They signed a bill that raises the smoking age from 18 years old to 21. They also banned the sales of electronic smoking devices for anybody under the age of 21 years old. So, big move there in Hawaii.
All right, indeed.
There we go.
All right, well, we got a little sound there.
Got a little bit.
Indeed, yes. Now, I got to tell you, let's start off this morning talking about the aftermath of last week's mass murder, which we talked about on Thursday, and you talked about on Friday with Goldie Taylor, right?
Yep.
From Blue State Review. And thanks to Goldie for doing a good job Friday. I tuned in a little bit myself. She was also talking about the fallout from Charleston, and it continued over the weekend. President Obama, shortly after our show on Thursday, came into the briefing room at the White House, very angry, very emotional, visibly irritated, as Associated Press described him. And he lamented the tragedy. Here, one more case of racial turmoil that he has to deal with in his presidency. But he said something very interesting about guns. He said, after other tragedies like this, whether it was out in Colorado or up in New York State, the president said, we need to do something about these guns. We need to have new legislation. He was pressing Congress to act. This time, he didn't. There was no announcement, we're going to have a national conversation on guns. There was no challenge to Congress to act anything. The president just basically said the politics today makes it impossible to do anything about guns. Alas, alas, alas. And he said, at some point, we're going to have to deal with this. Well, I hate to accept the fact that there's nothing we can do about guns, and I really don't. But I'll tell you, there is something we can do something about. So maybe he's right about that. I hope not. Maybe he's right. But here's something we can do something about, which is the Confederate flag. Isn't it time to stand up and get rid of the Confederate flag? And as I must admit, I'll take my cue here from Jeb Bush, who did this in Florida. Take down the Confederate flag and put it in a museum where it belongs. Put it in a museum of racism where it belongs. You may remember a couple of months ago, I went down to Columbia, South Carolina to be a guest at a class with my good friend Professor Don Fowler at the University of South Carolina, and we went. I told him I really wanted to see the Capitol grounds, and we went to see the Capitol grounds in Columbia. Peter, you know it well.
Yeah.
And I was stunned. I was really shocked because it's not. I knew the Confederate flag was flying there, right? But it's not just the Confederate flag. There's a memorial to the Confederate Soldiers Memorial, they call it, which praises the Confederate soldiers for all their heroism and patriotism. And then right in back of that memorial is where the Confederate flag flies. Full staff, they cannot by law take it down. So the other flags were half staff last week.
Can't do it.
Confederate flag all the way up.
That's the law.
That's the law, right. And also on the Capitol grounds, it's not just the monument to the Confederate soldiers and the flag. There's a statue of Strom Thurmond, racist Strom Thurmond, who said famously, no laws will ever force us to accept the Negroes in our restaurants and our places of amusement, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a monument to Ben Tillman. They called him Pitchfork Ben Tillman, who was also a U.S. Senator way back in the 19th century, I guess. And, actually bragged about taking bands of people out and killing African Americans. He said, and it sounded like Dylan Roof at the time. He said, we got to kill them before they rape our women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
and they got this statue to him on the ground. I found the entire Capitol grounds a monument to racism.
Yeah.
And so it's just time to face up to this. There were many, many protesters around the state capitol over the weekend. And a couple of them I thought if we have that audio, Elisa, made very strong points. The first one said, let's just face this is what the flag is all about.
On state grounds, the Confederate battle flag is a just big token of racism. And I'm not a fan of racism and be really happy to see it gone.
Yeah. That's a band from Greenville, South Carolina. He is, and so he says, forget this stuff about this is part of our heritage. This is, we're proud of our heritage. No, it's a lingering symbol of racism. His wife actually says, here's where it belongs.
I would prefer if it was in a museum because I understand that people who say it's history, it's heritage, Like, I've lived in South Carolina most of my life. I love this state. I understand the pride there.
Yeah. And if you think it stands for anything else, look at the website of this Dylan Roof, the killer in Charleston. Look at his website and look at what he's holding in his hand. Look at what he's wearing on his jacket. This is not heritage to him. It's a license. It's a license to hate blacks. It's a license to hate them to the point of violence. And that's, to me, what that symbolism is in South Carolina. It's basically saying it's still okay today to hate. It's still okay today. Racial hatred is still. That's what having the Confederate flag flying is. So I was really pleased to see Jeb Bush say, we did this in Florida. It's what they ought to do in South Carolina. And Mitt Romney came out yesterday and said, take the flag down.
Very strong way.
Enough is enough.
He was very strong about it.
Yeah.
Get it down.
So, Peter, you're from South Carolina.
Hey, look,
in here?
The Confederate flag is a very, very sensitive issue to a lot of people in South Carolina. And it has been for a very long time. I can't believe we're here debating the issue 20 years after it was taken down from the top of the state capitol. It used to fly on top of the state capitol.
Until the year 2000. And this was the compromise, was to put it in front of the state capitol.
And in a lot of ways, it's in a much more prominent place now than it was when it flew over the Capitol. Because it's right there front and center. You've seen it.
Yeah.
It's right there. You can't miss it.
I tweeted out photos of them.
And if you're going to have a state that represents all people, not just these people that are hanging on to their nasty, albeit complicated, but nasty pasts, you can't have that represent everybody. You just can't. And while we can't change what happened on Wednesday night of last week, you could take the first step of saying, get rid of this flag. Get it down, put it away, lock it away.
And this is a test. I got to tell you, Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney have passed the test. Mayor Joe Riley of Charleston passed the test. They all said, take it down. Lindsey Graham says, well, we should talk about it. We talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about the monuments, talk about the flag, talk about the cemeteries, all that kind of stuff. Marco Rubio said the basic thing, said, I'm sure the legislature in South Carolina will make the best decision for the people. No, this is a time for people to stand up, take a stand. And I ask you to take a stand right now. Let's say, isn't it time to take the flag down once and for all? 866-55-PRESS. Here on The Bill Press Show this Monday, June 22nd.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water. We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, lots of calls, and we'll take your calls here on the other side of the break. I say, not only take the Confederate flag down, but let's just clean up the state capitol grounds in South Carolina. Take down the monument to the Confederate soldiers. Take down the statue to Strom Thurmond, and take down the statue to Ben Tillman, and let's bring them into the 21st century.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir And I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in this city together.
What you gonna do when the temperature's so? Love our children too.
But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other,
love our children too.
helping each other out,
Then I sat at the
living
banker's
together,
desk. I gotta get something
living
off my
together.
chest. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack? President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. please.
It's interesting. 34 minutes after the hour now, we're talking about the Columbia, South Carolina, the state capital. And the talk, even one Republican state senator, pretty brave man, has come out and said, yes, indeed, now's the time to take the flag down. Let's just stop farting around with it. David Beasley, you might remember, the governor of South Carolina, up for re-election a few years ago. He proposed taking the flag down once and for all, not even having it fly at some other place on the state capitol grounds, and he was defeated for otherwise a popular governor on that issue alone. He lost his job. And again, it's interesting to see, this has become, in fact, it's a front page story in this morning's New York Times. The Confederate flag is a test for the GOP hopefuls. And for the record, Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney, of course, who's not running this time, have both come out and said that we ought to take the flag down. Marco Rubio has said it's up to the people of South Carolina. He's sure they will make the right choice. Lindsey Graham, he's not taking a position either. Scott Walker, not taking a position. And I was trying to find, I know Ted Cruz, Peter, I have to check that. Don't have it right in front of me. But Ted Cruz did make some statement. I think it was pretty wishy-washy. If it wasn't, we'll come back and correct it. But I want to know where you stand. Isn't it time just to face the reality of what it's all about when we see what the Confederate flag meant to Dylan Roof? Again, I think it is a license to hate. Ike is down in Charleston. That's where we start when we talk about Charleston. Hello, Ike.
Yeah, hey, give me a little elbow room here real quick. I've been to a lot of different countries in this world, and I've seen the stars and bars and the KKK symbols in Australia. I've seen them in Germany. This is a racist symbol. As far as I'm concerned, it should come down and be put in a museum. But furthermore than that, Peter, I got something for you. On the front page of the paper yesterday, I bought the memoriam, and they put 9 Confederate roses on the front page, symbolizing the deaths of these black people. Now, you explain to, if you don't know the history, Confederate roses were given to soldiers when they went off to battle. They're made from sweetgrass.
I saw the sweetgrass roses on the cover of the Post Courier.
They're made from sweetgrass. Yes, and they were given to the soldiers, and when the soldiers returned home, if they survived, they put the roses out by the front door to signal that they'd made it home safely.
Oh, wow.
Do you read any? I don't know how to take that. Can you help me figure out what they're trying to say using those roses, those symbols of the Civil War?
I think they might have meant it in the right way, but boy, I think they should have thought twice.
I didn't know about that history of it, but yeah.
I think they should have thought twice before they did that.
Ike brings up a good point about seeing this Confederate flag in other countries, right? Because Germany has outlawed the Nazi flag, the swastika. You can't fly that in Germany. You can't wear that. It's been outlawed. So, as I saw someone mentioned, what they use instead is the Confederate flag.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's insane.
Whoa.
I saw that too.
Yeah. And by the way, in Florida, other states have done, Florida, I know, under Jeb Bush, did basically retire the flag, put it in a museum where it belongs. Out in Chicago, hey, Joey, what's up, man?
Good morning, everybody. Why are they so proud of that flag? That flag represents to me a bunch of grown men who can't compete with the people they belittle and degrade. They can't stack up to them. Down deep inside, they know they ain't half as good as them. And I got news here. There's very little daylight between what that flag represents, the Republican Party, and the Fox News Channel. And you know what? They're a bunch of cowards, too. You know what? Just say what that flag means and stop dancing around it. You're a bunch of cowards. You know what it means, and you won't even face it. That's who you are. Face up to who you are, people.
All right, there's a word from Joey, a man of a strong emotion and doesn't mind expressing it. I will have to say here, I'm the last one to come to the defense of Republicans, but it's wrong to brand the Confederate flag and equal that with the Republican Party. Most Republicans don't reject certainly what the worst of these people believe the Confederate flag to be. And we've already seen, and again, that's why I just want to give them the credit for it, Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush, at least alone now, so far as I know, among the top Republicans have come out and said, no, it's time to take the flag down. And good for them.
Yeah, I mean,
that will cost Jeb Bush some support.
It will. It absolutely will.
And what I hate are these wishy-washy people. By the way, starting with the governor of South Carolina.
Yeah.
She says, we'll talk about it later, and we'll let the people decide. You need a 2/3 vote of the state legislature. And Lindsey Graham, the same thing. Well, we'll leave it up to the legislature. Marco Rubio, I'm sure the legislature will make the right decision. No. Take a stand, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely time to just put that piece of history to bed. And as somebody said last week, we had our friend Mr. Ellison in, who talked about, at best, this flag represents treason. At best, it represents treason. At worst, it represents something far more sinister.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's no good way to interpret this flag. There's no good way to interpret the flag.
Says a man from South Carolina.
Yeah. Look, this has been an issue my whole life growing up in South Carolina.
Sure.
Like when I was in school, I remember this was the debate over whether or not it should come down from on top of the Capitol. There was a whole big outcry because there was a series of African American groups who took the Confederate flag and put African colors on it. And so, those were banned from my school. The Confederate flag shirts were banned from my school at the time. And I knew a lot of people that were in my class I wasn't friends with who, had the Confederate flag on the back of their cars, a sticker. It's something that is just like I was around all the time.
And again, if you have any doubts about the message that this is sending, look at that photograph that Dylan Roof decided to post on his Facebook page, where he's wearing the jacket and he's got the flag of Rhodesia, the white supremacists putting down the majority black population there, and the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the signal. It's a green light for hateful people like him to do whatever.
If you're wearing a Confederate flag on your clothing, you're telling people something about yourself.
Kathy's down in Tupelo, Mississippi. Hey, Kathy.
Bill.
Hi, thanks for joining us. What do you think?
Hey, do you remember me from Elvis's?
Yes, indeed, I do. That's right.
Yeah. Listen, been watching this thing. I'm wondering hopefully, that this issue in South Carolina is going to finally bring things to a head.
I think it will, Kathy.
I think fine. That's what I'm hoping is that. Of course, we've had some of the other shootings, but most of them, I think, have been in blue states. But this one's been in a red state, and I'm wondering, a very conservative state, just like Mississippi, and I'm hoping it's going to.
Do you see any signs of the Confederate flag in Mississippi?
We see some, and I was telling when I first called in and spoke to the representative that answered the phone, I said we've got some posts on Facebook. People here in Mississippi are contacting Governor Bryant to try to get that flag removed.
All right. Well, good for you. And let's hope that movement sweeps the South. Jamie Benson is his name, by the way. The representative.
The representative
who answers the phone calls.
You know what I keep coming back to in this debate is the South has changed so much in so many different areas, and there are still so many pockets of racism and bigotry, and it's going to take a long time to weed all that out. But when you look at a state like South Carolina, it has changed dramatically just in the last 10, 15 years. The gay pride parade that happens in Charleston never happened when I was growing up there.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's a huge event. It's gigantic, and it takes place on King Street. It's a huge thing.
There have been huge changes. There will be and change is happening fast. But I'll tell you, leaving that flag up, and leaving those monuments up just gets in the way of change.
It emboldens the people who don't want to change.
Absolutely. All right. But take a quick break. Thanks for the calls, folks. We'll be talking about this throughout the program this morning. Take a quick break and then come back and be joined by Scott Bland. Scott Bland, editor-in-chief of the National Journal Hotline.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Jordan Fabian covers the White House for The Hill newspaper and will be here in studio with us at the top of the next hour. A big gathering of Republican candidates here in Washington over the weekend. Bernie Sanders, meanwhile, out on the West Coast. Scott Bland keeps track of it all for the Hotline, the National Journal editor-in-chief, joining us on our newsline this morning. Hello, Scott. Happy Monday.
Thanks for having me.
Do we have any new presidential candidates announcing this week?
Well, on June 24th, I believe, Bobby Jindal is going to be making it official. And then...
That's Wednesday, right? Isn't it?
I believe so, yes. And
today's 22nd.
And then after that, it looks like things are starting to solidify around a mid-July announcement by Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin. And Still waiting to hear on Chris Christie's plans, but the field really starts to set up at this point.
Chris Christie, we haven't heard for sure that he's running. And how about John Kasich?
Also kind of up in the air at this point. Things are pretty rapidly accelerating.
Right.
For him, though, he's making a pretty strong contrast with Jeb Bush at this point. Which when we did our most recent edition of the Hotline Presidential Power Rankings, we noted that Chris Christie and John Kasich both have a lot of the attributes that you would typically associate with someone who consolidates Republican support in these primaries. But the problem is that they really need someone ahead of them to stumble, probably Jeb Bush, in order to start gathering traction. Ironically enough, this happened to Kasich once before when he ran for president in 2000, and George W. Bush was sucking up all the oxygen. But
we've been talking this morning about the Republican candidates, particularly facing a little test this week about where they stand on the Confederate flag. Some of them have spoken out. Some of them are ducking it.
Yep, and this is a question that has come up in, I think it has essentially come up in every recent Republican presidential primary. South Carolina is a really important early state. They still fly the Confederate battle flag outside the state capitol there. It's a natural question that comes up when kind of folks in
particularly
other parts
now,
of the country
given the
start.
Events in Charleston last week.
Exactly, and now this is potentially the most kind of salient event to bring that out into the public, and so you've seen some candidates call for it to be taken down. You've seen other candidates duck their way out of it a little bit by saying, well, they personally disagree with it. It's up to the citizens of South Carolina, which is obviously the case. No one. This is not a matter of federal policy, but it is something that people will sometimes expect leaders to speak up on, and so I imagine this will continue to go on for the next week or so. It'll be especially interesting to see what Senator Tim Scott says, the African American Republican senator from South Carolina,
who has said that he will speak out and his voice will be clear on the issue once we have the mourning and the funeral services behind us on this issue. Now, this Faith and Freedom thing attracted several Republican candidates. Faith and Freedom rally or conference, whatever it was this weekend. Anybody stand out?
Well, it was interesting to see a few different things. He's not attracting a lot of attention these days, but I thought the stuff that Rick Perry said on Saturday was particularly interesting because, again, he was reminding everyone he's the longest-serving governor in Texas history, and basically his pitch was that all of the items that are important to conservative voters, a pro-life record, and so on and so forth, tax cutting, he has a longer list of accomplishments in every one of those policy categories than anyone else in the field. He's saying now whether or not that helps him gain traction at any point is a different question. He's probably operating on the shortest rope of any candidate because of his difficulties launching his campaign in 2011. And so, but it is interesting to see the pitch that he's making this time around in a much more polished fashion, I might add.
That's what I've heard. Although, as you say, it's kind of hard to take him seriously, and he's not one that you hear a lot of talk about. We got to run, but I have to ask you quickly about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders keeps getting huge crowds in California, Colorado, everywhere he goes.
Feel the burn,
right? Yeah.
He does, and crowd size always makes me nervous, just because, especially there is really no way to tell specifically, but it is pretty impressive, and it does speak to something. But we've seen his poll numbers surge in New Hampshire, which actually is, I think, a little more expected than not, because he's from Vermont, and actually, inside those polls, the farther you get from Vermont within New Hampshire, the more his numbers decline. But there is obviously a contingent of people out there who are very excited about him. And you could see that in the online fundraising numbers, too.
Well, I'll tell you, he could win Iowa, he could win New Hampshire, and then we're off to the races. All right. Hey, Scott, always good visiting with you. Thanks so much for getting up early for us. All right, talk
Thank
to you
you.
again soon. Scott Bland at the National Journal, nationaljournal.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Jordan Fabian from The Hill in studio at the top of the next hour. Peter.
Yesterday was Father's Day.
Yeah, thank you.
As you well know.
Happy
Father's Day, Bill. The President Obama, is, of course, fathers to Malia and Sasha, who are 16 and 14 years old. He did a little editorial for More magazine and talked about being a father in the White House. He said being a father in the White House is not so bad. In fact, he says it always helps to live above the store, as he put it. He says he can keep an eye on things, and they always sit down for family dinner. So,
yeah, he said actually living in the White House has led to a more normal family life than not living in the White House, which is hard to believe.
It's hard to believe. But in some ways, you're right there.
I think surrounded by Secret Service agents is not something I would describe as normal.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go, friends and neighbors. What do you say? It's Monday. Yep. Hope you had a great weekend. This is Monday, June 22nd, in case you lost track of it. Again, I hope you had a good weekend and a happy Father's Day across the board. And, of course, we celebrated the first day of summer yesterday. Here we go now, jumping into a big new week here. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital and reaching out to you coast to coast on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Lots to talk about. President Obama is back at the White House. Poor guy. He just went down to play a little golf in Palm Springs, and he found himself right in the middle of the big controversy over the drought in California, with a lot of criticism about golf courses because they suck up so much water. And here he was playing golf when maybe he should have been doing something to show that he was conserving water instead of wasting it. Palm Springs, where residents use twice as much water as any other city in California, mainly because of all the golf courses. Sometimes you can't win for losing, Mr. President. Mother Emanuel AME Church down in Charleston, South Carolina, back in business yesterday. A full house to move forward and also to commemorate the memory of the 9 church members who were brutally killed last week during their Bible study class. Thousands of people thronged outside and couldn't get inside of the church. And the big controversy now in South Carolina is, will they do the right thing and take down the Confederate flag? None other than Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush both said they should take down the flag and put it in a museum where it belongs. So much to talk about today. Look forward to hearing from you on all the issues of the day. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS, The Bill Press Show, and off we go.
This is The Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all.
I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Mayor Joe Riley from Charleston says, take the Confederate flag down. Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're right. I hope the legislature of South Carolina does the right thing. Hello, everybody. Here we go. Monday, June 22nd. So good to see you today. And thank you for joining us here, the Bill Press Show, booming out to you from our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, booming out to you all across this great land of ours on your local progressive talk radio station. So good to see you here in Radio Land. And don't forget, if you're not lucky enough to have a progressive radio station near you, or if you're traveling, you can download one of the great radio apps, TuneIn. Just tune in, or iHeartRadio, and they're both free, and then you can follow us on radio wherever you happen to be. We're also there with you on Free Speech TV nationwide, on DirecTV and the Dish Network, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Thanks for joining us. Lots to talk about this morning. We need help of a good friend to get through all the news of the day here in Washington. We've got one, and Jordan Fabian, who covers the Hill, covers the White House for The Hill, thehill.com. Hello, Jordan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
We have told everybody, by the way, that we are suffering a loss of our air conditioning here in this building. So if we look a little more casual than usual, and for Jordan to be casual is taking his jacket off. For the rest of us, we just go shorts and all, right?
It's so bad in here. It's just brutal.
You could open up like a nice sauna business if you want.
We really could.
That.
Like
yeah,
we're trying to warn all of our guests before they come here. Like, hey, maybe wear some shorts before you come in.
You know, there is an upside. I've already lost 7 pounds. So
yeah, right.
By the end of the show,
it's all water weight. You just sweat it all out. Like, we all look like we're waiting for results in here, just sweating on our brow. It's terrible.
So Jordan's here with us for the first half hour. Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy sweating away, leading the team here this morning. With if you see us wiping our brow, often that's what it's all about. Jamie Benson here to take your calls. Don't forget, you're part of the program. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And Cyprian Bolding. Yep, he is braving the heat as well here as our videographer.
he's fanning everybody.
The show fanner today.
Videographer and fanner.
That feels good, though, Sip. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Well, why'd he stop?
Yeah, right.
What's going on? How about it? Jordan, so President was out on the West Coast over the weekend, a few fundraisers, talking to the Conference of Mayors, got in a round of golf, and taped a very unusual interview with basically stand-up comic.
Mark Maron, yeah.
Mark Maron. Funny, the two of them getting together.
If I thought to myself that when I was in college that I'd be in a garage a couple miles away from where I was living doing an interview as president with a comedian, I think that's a pretty hard scenario to
couldn't imagine it.
It's not possible to imagine.
No.
Yeah, come a long way, baby.
I can't wait to hear this.
They haven't released the whole interview yet.
Yeah.
What's it, play today or?
I guess he puts it up today or tomorrow.
I think it's today. Yeah, it comes up today.
It's one of the biggest podcasts, if not the biggest and most successful podcast out there, and I listen to it frequently. It kind of depends on who the guest is, as to whether or not I listen to it. But he's a really good interviewer.
Yeah,
and I'm curious to see if he gets some stuff out of the president that other people don't.
Scoring the president of the United States is a big get too.
And he literally does it out of his garage in his home in L.A.
Yeah, it was an interesting scene in L.A. where you have all of his neighbors kind of flocking around his house when this huge motorcade rolls up and the president rolls out. Like, what the hell is going on here?
And the Secret Service swept the room before.
I'm sure.
Of course. Sure. So, Jordan, why is the president do so many of these outlier interviews, if you will, and so few for mainstream media?
Well, I think the White House Communications Office sees these new platforms as a way to reach new audiences. And, for legacy media outlets, a lot of them are downsizing. And, I think that the White House wants to sort of, quote unquote, get beyond the filter and go to people who aren't in the day-to-day of politics. Maybe aren't going to ask him as tough of questions as he would get from, mainstream media outlets. And so he'll go do, the Glozell Green interview on YouTube, Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis, and now this. So this is a part of a concerted strategy by the White House.
The questions may not be so pointed or so tough, and also they might talk about other issues than, we sort of get in a rut at the White House. As you hear at the briefings, as I hear, it drives me crazy, but everybody asks the same question on the same topic over and over and over and over again. And there's just a lot of stuff that never gets brought up, and so
right. And I haven't listened to the full podcast yet, but I know that before they were talking about it, they would get into stuff about Obama's background and his upbringing, and maybe in an interview with a comedian he will let his guard down a little bit and let his hair loose.
Yeah. So. The president, a lot on his plate this week. We'll talk to Jordan about that here in the first half hour. Later, we'll be joined by reporters from Think Progress and from Huffington Post. But first.
That's Peter. Right. Just a couple of other stories. By the way, just to pick up on that thought, the podcast is up. You could download on iTunes. I have it now, just so you know. Congratulations to Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth won the U.S. Open yesterday after a bit of a meltdown from Dustin Johnson. He had a chance to win on the 18th and blew that. Jordan Spieth, 21 years old. He is 2 for 2 on majors this year. Congratulations
and not
to
even 22
him.
Yet.
What have we done with our lives?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, come on. This guy's done so much more than I did. He turns 22 next month, so congratulations again to Jordan Spieth.
That course, by the way.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, everybody's talking about
nightmare.
Total nightmare.
There was one point that one of the golfers
just before, but they
passed out, right?
Oh, no,
it was so hot, and
he had vertigo. Actually,
vertigo.
I mean, a clinical vertigo. They diagnosed it as something that has to be treated. Just didn't get dizzy.
But they did have some golfers going live on the air and ripping the USGA for the greens. It was pretty wild.
It was really gross. It was really, really gross. Congratulations to the Nationals' Max Scherzer. He pitched a no-hitter on Saturday. In fact, he came this close to pitching a perfect game. It was the bottom. It was the last batter, Jose Tabata. People are saying that it looks like he leaned into a pitch, which means he was hit by the pitcher, which means he took a base. That ruined the perfect game. It did preserve the no-hitter. He still threw a no-hitter. But what a game. The game before this that Scherzer pitched, he pitched a one-hitter, almost perfect game again. He's on fire.
No, he's an absolute phenomenon.
Yeah, it's insane.
He's providing us what we were hoping Strasburg would have.
That's absolute
some mental toughness.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need. And Post Foods announced that they are rolling out a new line of cereal kids can finally eat their ice cream for breakfast. It's ice cream pebbles. It's not Fruity Pebbles. It's ice cream pebbles. It's going to be a lot like Fruity Pebbles, but it's going to have an ice cream theme, so you're going to have like a rainbow sherbet flavor happening in there.
So what do you keep it in the freezer, I guess, right?
Well, it's not actual ice cream. It's just like the little schmallows, you know, like the little cereal marshmallows that are flavored like ice cream. So good luck, kids. I'm not going to give that to my children, but, you know, this is America. It's a free country. If you want to give it to your kids, knock yourself out.
All right, you got it. You know what? I'm pretty sure it was in this interview with Mark Maron, wasn't it? No. The president did an op-ed for Father's Day. That's where it was. Where sort of surprised me, you know, because I remember Bill Clinton used to talk about, like, living in public housing, you know, in the White House, and how that they felt so confined because you can't just go out for a walk, right, or whatever in the neighborhood. President Obama said, surprisingly, that he found the White House has led to a more normal family life than he might have had otherwise.
Hard to believe, I think. You know, when he goes to see Sasha's dance recital, he's got to take the full motorcade up 270 and clear the traffic.
I do that with my kids all the time.
I'm sure.
That's how we get to soccer games.
Who among us doesn't?
Yeah,
do that?
right.
But you know, he's the one thing he loves to do, as he says, is his nightly 6:30 dinner with his wife and daughters, and I guess, you know, them being all together at the White House is conducive to that. So the president says that being in the White House is great for parenthood, and I think what Bill Clinton said was the White House is the crown jewel of the federal penitentiary system.
Yeah, right.
It would be Bill Clinton who
differing
said that.
views there, intra-party debate over whether the White House is good for family life.
It's got to be frustrating to be confined in there. The president also on the West Coast, and before he left, well, you were there Thursday in the briefing room, the morning after the massacre down in Charleston, South Carolina, where the president was described. Tell us about that. He was described as visibly irritated by AP. Did he show that? Did you see that?
I think very somber appearance, and also frustrated. He unleashed his frustration about not being able to change the nation's gun laws, and he said at some point that this is going to have to get done. And even though the politics in Washington foreclose it right now, so that's a pretty surprising admission from the president. Even though it's a political reality, but to say that I'm the most powerful man in the world, but I can't do anything about all these mass shootings that are happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of commentary on that. Chris Salica in the Washington Post talked about it under the headline "President Obama waves white flag on gun control," saying that the difference between after Sandy Hook and after Aurelio, Colorado, it was all, we got to do something. We've got to pass this law. He put, he actually, and I remember, had a national task force led by Vice President Biden. We need a national conversation on race, and there was legislation introduced by Dianne Feinstein, which the president immediately supported. This time, he didn't propose anything new at all. Just said, yeah, you're right. At some point, we have to address this. Right. At some point, we have to talk about it. Well, I think he's kind of given up on that issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if there's going to be a turning point for gun control, it would have been Sandy Hook, where you have, a madman going into an elementary school and killing a bunch of kids. But as we saw, that the politics around gun control didn't really change in Washington. You still had Republicans opposing it. You had Democrats running for re-election in red states opposing it. So I think it's an acknowledgement of political reality that, the votes aren't there, especially now that Republicans control the House and the Senate. So,
and the president repeated some of the points that he made when he addressed the U.S. Conference of Mayors out in San Francisco the next day.
You don't see murder on this kind of scale with this kind of frequency in any other advanced nation on earth.
And the president pointed out there's one reason why we see it here.
Every country has violent, hateful, or mentally unstable people.
He's still there, the pause.
What's different is not every country is awash with easily accessible guns.
Yeah, there it is. It's the point. So easy.
It's so true. It's so true. You look at how many gun deaths we have in this country, and the only question we keep coming back to is why? Why are there so many gun deaths here compared to other countries?
Yeah, it struck me when we were in Cuba and people were asking, okay, is it safe to walk around Havana? I mean, are there parts should we be, can we just walk around town or whatever? And the people down there said, yeah, of course you can walk anywhere. And they said there's like zero crime, and there are no guns. No guns. Right. I mean, the military have the guns. Nobody else.
And to be clear, these things do happen overseas. We saw the the anti-Semitic attacks in France,
in
where we
Paris,
have
sure.
Yeah, someone shoot up a supermarket. But I think the point is that he's making is that it doesn't happen with the same frequency and the same scale that happens here.
Yeah, that we see here.
Right.
So, there was a lot of hope that we'd see some change in that area. But that's going to remain on the unfinished business list, I think, when the president leaves office. And, Jordan, you've just written about other things on the well, let's get to that. We'll take a quick break when we come back. What is left on president? He doesn't have a lot of time left. So what's left on his checklist of things to do before he moves out of that comfortable White House? Jordan Fabian here from the Hill. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 25 minutes after the hour with Jordan Fabian from The Hill, thehill.com. Follow The Hill, and you can read my column in The Hill tomorrow on Tuesday. So what's on the president's yet-to-finish list, Jordan, the big items?
Well, there's a lot. And I think the two items that are the most likely to get done are the trade bill, which has been...
We'll know that this
back
week,
to life.
maybe.
Yeah, Tuesday, and possibly a big vote in the Senate. And the nuclear agreement with Iran, which I think the deadline there is June 30th. They might extend that a week, but it seems the signals coming out of those talks is that it's going to get done. But there's a lot of other stuff that isn't going to get done. We talked about guns earlier. The war against ISIS still going to be going probably when the president leaves office. Kind of amazing that we'll still be in Iraq.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. And, there's one other issue which will be resolved, but there's nothing the president right now can do about it, which is the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
With the Supreme Court.
Yes, and we heard him, really kind of vent anger at the Supreme Court at even considering this case a few weeks ago. And I think it's so frustrating for the president because, like you said, it's out of his control. And he just has to sit there and, watch them do their thing. So
if the Supreme Court rules, I think they're going to do the right thing. I think they will uphold the Affordable Care Act and reject this argument that only people in states that have a state exchange would qualify for a federal subsidy. But if they were to rule the other way, and 8 million people lose their health insurance, those people who are in states where there's no state exchange, so they only have a federal exchange, what could the president do? Or what would he do you think?
Well, I don't know how much he could do himself. I think the states would either have to set up their own exchanges so the subsidies fall under the law, or Congress would have to pass their own fix.
Right.
And what we've seen from Republicans on health care for the last 7 years is that they can't really agree on much other than the fact that they really don't like Obamacare. But now they're realizing that a lot of their constituents are going to lose their health coverage because of this, and they're scrambling to do something.
Sure. Hello, guess what?
Right.
All those 8 million people do not live in blue states.
Right.
A lot of them are in Republican states, and a lot of them like the health care.
And a lot of them are in swing states like Florida, North Carolina, Virginia.
Good
and,
point.
In 2016, if you have a bunch of people off health insurance, they're going to be wondering, who's responsible. I think now they're realizing that this, politically and policy-wise is kind of more of a mess than they would have expected it to be when their lawsuit was out.
Yeah, I think the best thing for the Republican Party would be for the Supreme Court to uphold Obamacare, because otherwise they're going to have a real problem on their hands. They certainly will be held responsible because they're the ones that filed the suit, and they've got to do something. They just can't say, oh, well, just go to the emergency room or whatever.
Right. And I think it's likely they won't get anything done because, like I said, they don't agree on anything.
Right.
So.
You didn't mention Guantanamo. That's another thing that's on there. I mean, you've got that in your story.
Right, yeah. And that's something that they're trying to come up with another plan to fix it. But, again, Congress doesn't. It should be closed, so we'll see what happens.
And time is running out for the president, and time has run out for us. But Jordan, always good to have you in. Thank you, man.
Thanks a lot, Bill.
See you at the briefing later today. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When when I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 33 minutes after the hour, Monday, June 22nd. Good to see you today. Thanks to Goldie Taylor from Blue State Review for being here on Friday as a friend to Bill. We are here in our nation's capital and our studio on Capitol Hill. And moving right along with what has become the big issue of the day in the aftermath of the terrible tragedy at Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston last week. Now, a lot of people are raising the question about what to do about the Confederate flag, which still flies in front of the no longer over, but since the year 2000, in front of the state capitol building on the Capitol grounds there in Columbia, South Carolina. And, of course, we saw the Confederate flag on the jacket that killer Dylan Roof was wearing on his Facebook page, the flag of Rhodesia, white supremacists, and, of course, the flag and the Confederate flag, both standing to him, both representing the same thing, which is overt racial hatred is okay, even to the point of violence. And there's another photo that he had up on his on his web page where he's just got waving the flags at a small Confederate flag in his hand. So we know what it stood for him. And what's interesting is to hear the voices of now. This has become a real test for Republican candidates running for president because, of course, after Iowa and New Hampshire, South Carolina is the first big test in the South and has become a critical test in Republican primaries. So they're all being asked, what would you do about taking down the Confederate flag? By the way, in the context here, too, is there have been thousands of people who've been massing in front of the state capitol. South Carolinians saying, take down this flag. This is a symbol of hatred, and it no longer belongs here. It's no, we can't pretend anymore. This is just part of our heritage.
Heritage, not hate. That's the line I've heard forever and ever and ever.
Right. No, they're saying clearly it's hatred. In fact, we had a couple of sound from a couple of the protesters who were there. Some man from Greenville, South Carolina.
On state grounds, the Confederate battle flag is a just big token of racism. And I'm not a fan of racism and be really happy to see it gone.
His wife, there with him, said, here's what we ought to do with it.
I would prefer if it was in a museum because I understand the people who say it's history, it's heritage, you know. Like, I've lived in South Carolina most of my life. I love this state. I understand the pride there.
Yeah, okay. But put a museum there with all the other symbols of racial hatred. Now, back to the GOP candidates. So is this a test? They're all being asked, and some of them have passed the test. Jeb Bush, in fact, said, here's what we ought to do with the flag. Do with it what we did when I was governor of Florida. Take it down, put it in a museum. Good for Jeb Bush. Mitt Romney yesterday tweeted out, pardon me, he's not running, of course, but he's leader of the Republican Party. Take the flag down. He called it a symbol of racial hatred. They're the only two that I know of, correct me if I'm wrong, who have taken a clear stand. With everybody else, it's wishy-washy. Ted Cruz says, the flag is a question for South Carolina. The last thing we need is people from outside the state talking about it. Well, too bad, Ted Cruz. I'm outside of South Carolina. I'm going to talk about it, and so are millions of other Americans. Rick Santorum said the same thing, basically. It's up to the people of South Carolina. Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, says he'll trust the legislature to do the right thing. Marco Rubio has said he'll trust the South Carolina legislature to do the right thing. Now, those are not answers. Mm-hmm. They're just ducking the question. What do you think ought to be done? 866-55-PRESS, Peter, as a South Carolinian, you got the first word?
This is something that I've struggled with in my adulthood.
You lived through this.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. There was this huge Confederate flag flap all when I was growing up. And as I've moved into adulthood, I constantly talk about how I am a reluctant South Carolinian. Because when you say South Carolina, there are so many generalizations that people make that for the most part, there's some truth to. Like, there is a very complicated past in the state of South Carolina, and complicated is a generous way to put the racial bigotry and hatred that's gone on there for so long. And it's something that everybody has to confront at some point in their lives. They either have to see it and realize that this is wrong, or they see it and they buy into it and they just continue going that way. You have to, you're confronted with it no matter what if you grow up there. So having seen so many people fly that flag or have that flag on the back of their car or their truck or seen it tattooed on people over the course of my life, it's never, ever just about heritage.
No.
It's never just about heritage.
No, and it's wrong. And the difference, like you go to, I love Charleston, right? We've talked about that. But you go to Charleston, the slave market is still right downtown, which is pretty shocking to realize when you realize what that building once was.
Yeah.
Now, today it's full of vendors and they're selling everything, from these straw baskets to jewelry to books. I mean, kind of everything. But that's lurking like in the background. They've really made a transition. Then you go to Columbia, where I was a couple of months ago, to the Capitol grounds of the capital of South Carolina, and you've got the monument right in front of the Capitol, the monument to the Confederate soldiers, with all kinds of flowery language on it praising them. Then you've got the Confederate flag flying there, which by law can never be lowered. By law. So they could not even lower it like the other flags, the American flag and the South Carolinian flag, to half-staff in memory of the victims of that shooting last week. And on the Capitol grounds, you've got a statue to racist Strom Thurmond. On the Capitol grounds, you've got a monument to the ultra-racist Benjamin Tillman, Pitchfork Ben, they call it. The whole Capitol grounds, I found, was like a monument to racism and racial hatred. And the fact that that's out there today, it's a green light, as we've seen, to people like Dylan Roof, that it's okay to hate blacks just simply because they're black.
One of the things that I personally love about the South, one of the things I love about the South is that they don't run away from their past, and they force people to see it, and they force people to get a sense of what happened here. And so when you talk about the slave market, that's there. You talk about the plantations. There are plantations all over the South where obviously slaves were kept and held, and there are slave burial grounds, and they've turned it into, some of these are working plantations where people have jobs and they produce things. But it's a reminder that these things happened here. But it's not a representation of the entire state. The way that these memorials and monuments and the flag symbolize when they're on the state capitol grounds there that represents everybody in the state of South Carolina. You can't have that there and say that you represent everybody.
Right.
You can't. You just can't.
And again, a warped mind like a Dylan Roof sees that and he says, well, it's okay to feel. It's okay. It's okay to feel the way I feel about African Americans because, look, the Confederate battle flag is flying in my state capital. Yeah. And I think I mentioned, too, Mayor Joe Riley from Charleston has said it's time to take that flag down. More and more South Carolinians saying so. The other senator from South Carolina, by the way, Senator Tim Scott, has just said once we get the grieving behind us, he said, my voice will be clear about what we should do with the state flag. The governor of South Carolina is another wishy-washy one. She has just said, well, we'll have to think about and talk about this, but not now. Now's not the time. 866, I want to know from you. Isn't it time to take the Confederate flag down once and for all? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network
Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The Bill Press Show brought to you today in part by Casper. Casper.com. That's a name to remember.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The monument, the statue of Strom Thurmond, and the statue of Ben Tillman as Pitchfork Ben as well. But just to show you that the South is not united on the issue of taking down the flag, the New York Times quotes Michael Hill, who is president of the League of the South.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. He says that the Confederate flag should remain at the State House, but that the American flag should be taken down. The American flag, Mr. Hill says...
He's still fighting that war.
Yeah. The American flag stands for multiculturalism, tolerance, and diversity. The Confederate battle flag stands for the heroic effort our people made 150 years ago to avoid the fate of contemporary America. So, yeah, there's still some sick people down there who see that in the Confederate battle flag. Dangerous to leave it there.
Crazy.
Beverly is calling from Benton, Pennsylvania. Hey, Beverly.
Good morning.
Hi, what do you think?
Well, I have some opinions from back in the 80s when I moved to North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And I was all happy going there, and I found out with PA plates that I wasn't very welcome down there. Okay?
Yeah. You're north of the Mason-Dixon line, Beverly.
Yes, I really love the Blue Ridge Parkway. I did meet some nice folks, but I didn't really expect what I encountered down there. I had no idea it was that bad. Okay, so within 8 months, I came back home, and I really hated that flag for how I was mistreated. And I'm white. I just couldn't understand why they were still holding that against us here in the North. So when I arrived home, I went into an establishment, and there was the rebel flag. I was so offended, I said, please take that down now. You don't realize how much they hate us up here. I said, you have no idea. So that was my encounter. I was in my early 20s, and I live in the mountains, and I have friends and neighbors that they carry the rebel flag on their trucks and stuff, but their reason for that up here is because of their dislike for African Americans.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, and it still goes on.
I'm telling you, Beverly, I really appreciate hearing from you and your experience. But Peter, you said that before. When you see it on a truck, you see people waving that flag around. Their message is very clear. Yeah. They're not saying, we're proud to be from the South. Right?
I'm proud that my ancestors fought and died for a cause that they believe in. That's not the message.
No.
It is not the message.
Yeah. The message is we're white and we're better.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Helen, up in Ithaca, New York. Hi, Helen.
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to apologize in advance to Peter because I'm from Illinois. I always defend, and when I lived in Europe, I would defend this country. I know Peter's from South Carolina, so what I'm going to say is
I've heard it before, my dear.
Okay. All right. Well, I was thinking they should take all that crap out of the Capitol grounds. You know, the statues, the flag, and all that stuff, and they could create a theme park so racists can go in there. They can pay money. I'm being facetious, you know.
Yeah, I hope so.
They can pay money, and they can pay to be slave for a day, see what it's like to pick cotton, tobacco, whatever, and they can go worship all their things. They can sell little Confederate lapel pins or whatever they want to do there. And
but Helen, I want to jump in because I can see and hear your tongue in cheek. But the problem today is, and that's the impression I had when I was on the Capitol grounds a couple of months ago, is it is today a theme park for racism. The Capitol grounds, you know, with the monument, with the flag, with Strom Thurmond, and with Ben Tillman, it's a monument. It's a theme park for racism.
Yeah, that's why I said that. So you move it over, make it a commercial enterprise, and all the money will go to the NAACP, or
How about if we just take it down and put it in a museum, Helen? Don't you think that's a better idea? I don't want anybody to have. I mean, Helen was just kidding, but I don't want anybody to have fun with it, right? Or to make fun of it or make sport of it. No, just recognize it. This was a time when this is wrong. This was wrong. Yes, it might have been the dominant beliefs of a lot of people at that time, but they were wrong then, and wrong to hold them today. Period.
You know, the fight
and we've moved beyond it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. This fight with the Confederate flag goes back over 20 years, and they took it down in 2000 off of the top of the state capitol. It used to fly over the state capitol.
Well, if I can. It flew over the state capitol, as you know, but it also was in the House and the Senate, both legislative chambers, and over the Capitol. So what I was told when I was there, the compromise was, is that they went from 3 flags to 1, and the 3 flags over the dome and in the 2 state houses or state chambers to 1 in front of the state capitol.
Right up front in front of the state capitol. You cannot miss it.
First thing you see.
And so this has been going on for so long, and the point I want to make is things have changed so much in South Carolina.
Yeah.
You used to be able to get away with this a lot more than you can now. People have just changed. They realize, they've seen how damaging this can be. And, MoveOn.org had a petition. Get the Confederate flag off of the state grounds in Columbia, South Carolina. They've had 500,000 signatures on that to take the flag down. People don't see it as heritage anymore. They see it as hate.
But, of course, Ted Cruz says it's up to the people of South Carolina and all the rest of us outside of South Carolina. We should not be talking about, guess what, Ted Cruz? Yeah. We don't listen to you about anything. We're not going to listen to you about that because this is an important issue for this country, not just for the people of South Carolina. President Obama is back from the West Coast. He has a busy day at the White House today. We'll tell you all about it when we come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. We hear you. We know 2 hours isn't enough. You're demanding a third hour today. You're going to get it. Yep. Hour number 3 coming up. But you'll have to wait for Free Speech TV to see it at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific. But you can catch it right away, as you know, on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. At the top of the next hour, Jack Jenkins, senior religion reporter for Think Progress, is going to be here to talk about Mother Emanuel Church. And Jen Bendery covers the Congress for Huffington Post. Will be both of them here in studio with us. So stay around, stay tuned, switch over to TawkrTV, and let's go into hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Yes, President Obama is back at the White House today. He gets the daily briefing at 10:30 this morning. Then this evening, he will be hosting an iftar dinner at the White House, celebrating Ramadan in the state dining room. Our briefing today with Press Secretary Josh Earnest is scheduled for 12:30 We're back with Jack Jenkins, who is a senior religion reporter for Think Progress.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. And they barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father, while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician's conduct rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Take down the Confederate flag. It's a symbol of racial hatred, says Mitt Romney. Echoed by Jeb Bush. 2 Republicans at least taking a strong stand and the right stand on this issue. Hey, hello, everybody. It is Monday, June 22nd. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. It's the Bill Press Show. We're here in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We're here with you on your local progressive talk radio station, wherever you happen to be in this great country of ours. And also, coast to coast, we're here with you on Free Speech TV. Thanks so much for being part of the program. Look forward to hearing from you what you think about the issues and the news of the day at 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. You can also send us your comments, of course, on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. We also encourage you to sign up and follow us on Twitter. That way you'll get, you never know. Special little goodies. I always tweet from the White House briefings, and once in a while, special little goodies like Peter. Thursday night, Carol and I were at a wonderful reception at the Danish Embassy here in Washington, D.C. The unveiling of a portrait of former President Bill Clinton, and he was there, and we had a chance to visit, and I popped up some photos.
Great photos of the president.
Of President Clinton saying hello to all of our gang. So if you weren't following us on Twitter, you might have missed your big hello from Bill Clinton.
At BP Show, a must follow.
He was in good form. Peter leads our team here. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, happy Monday.
We mentioned earlier, if we look a little more bedraggled than usual today, is because the air conditioning is off in our building. But gradually, we've made it through so far 2 hours, so we're doing pretty well. Right.
Lots of hydration.
Yes, right. Jamie Benson here, sweating away, taking your phone calls at 866-55-PRESS.
Jamie's drinking hot coffee, by the way.
No.
Oh, in there. He's drinking hot coffee.
He's a glutton for punishment.
It's supposed to be like 96 degrees today, and he's just, Yeah, he's a maniac.
What can I tell you?
He says he's a hard body.
And then there, Cyprian Balding, our videographer, who has been filling many roles this morning, he's also fanning us.
Yes, that's right. That brief feels good, sir.
Thank you, Cyprian.
It does feel nice, actually.
The problem is he only does it once an hour.
Yeah, I know, yeah. We're going to figure out how he does that, like, for the whole show and run the cameras.
Joining us here for this first half hour, Jack Jenkins is a senior religion reporter for Think Progress. Jack, nice to see you.
Glad to be here.
Certainly some of the most powerful moments that we have seen, I think, in our lifetime. Yesterday, Sunday, at the Mother Emanuel Church down in Charleston, back in business, opened its doors to show they are moving forward despite the tragedy that struck that historic church last Sunday, losing 9 of its best members, including the pastor. That was a very powerful moment, but maybe even more powerful was in the courtroom last week in Charleston when, by video, the young man who the murderer, Dylan Roof, was being arraigned, and in South Carolina, unusual law, they allow the families of the victims of a crime to come in and actually address the person charged with the crime. Many of them did. I think none more powerful than Felicia Sanders, the mother of Tawanda Sanders, the young man who actually told Dylan Roof, asked him, why are you doing this? And then he said, well, shoot me, don't shoot them, and actually put himself in front of some of the other person and was the first person to be killed. Here's his mother.
You have killed some of the most beautifulest people that I know. Every fiber in my body hurts. And I'll never be the same.
But every one of them ended by saying they forgave him.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone. Christian forgiveness.
That's power right there.
Real power. Yeah, rose above him. So we'll be talking religion here with Jack Jenkins for the first half hour. Then Jen Bendery covers the Congress and the White House for Huffington Post. She'll be joining us at the half hour as well. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Brought to you today by Health Mart Pharmacies. Yep, visit healthmart.com for the locally owned pharmacy near you. Peter.
Just a couple of other stories making news. The McBike Box is a new item that you can get at McDonald's if you go through... Look at Bill.
I don't know whether
McBike. If you go to McDonald's, they have bike throughs in some countries where people bike a lot more often. There's a lot more bike transportation. So, like in Copenhagen, they have a McBike. Tina, they have a McBike, and you can bike through instead of drive through and order your McDonald's. So they just unveiled their new packaging that has a handy little hole that you just hang right on your handlebars after you order. Because there's an issue, right? Of after you order, how do you ride your bike with like a paper bag full of burgers? And, so they have a little handy thing. You just slide it right on your bike, and then you can ride off.
But do they have a special lane for bikes, or do you just go through the...
They do. They have a bike lane for people who want to order McDonald's when you're on their bike.
Huh. You don't go through the drive-thru.
No, it's a bike through.
Got it.
Yeah, they have a drive-through and a bike through. Right? So, there you go. Very exciting stuff, Bill, up in upstate New York. The police got a credible lead on these missing prisoners.
They say.
They've been searching in one specific area, but their search over the weekend shifted to an area called Owl's Head in Franklin County. That's about 20 to 25 miles west of the Clinton Correctional Facility from which they broke free.
I thought they were down on the Pennsylvania border, rather, near Friendship.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. This is
more than 25 miles.
I'm sorry. That's where they had been searching. Outside the thing. They moved it. They moved it down to the close to the border of Pennsylvania, which means they're heading south and not north. So maybe they should be trying to get up to Canada. But they've moved the whole operation down there. They're going to keep looking for Richard, Matt, and David Sweat. They are still.
It's 2 weeks.
Free.
Easy. 2 weeks plus, right?
Yeah, June 6th is when they broke out.
Pretty smart though, because you never think you'd find prisoners in a place called Friendship. It's pretty good logic, I'd say.
That sounds like prison logic. Yeah, absolutely. And it's Monday, so let's take a look at the weekend box office. Still, the big winner is Jurassic world. They brought in $102 million this weekend. Just a juggernaut of a movie. This brings their gross here in America to almost $400 million. Also opening this weekend was Inside Out, the new Pixar movie, which didn't do so bad. It pulled in $91 million. On any other weekend, that's a hell of a weekend.
Remember, Ann Hornaday said she really liked it.
We haven't seen that. We're going to go see both of those. We haven't seen either yet. And number 3 was Spy, which pulled in only $10 million, so a distant third.
Carol and I saw Love and Mercy Saturday night.
How was that?
Excellent.
I hear it's great.
Very good.
It's not. By the way, that pulled in $1.6 million this weekend.
We did our best.
You did what you could.
All right, Peter, thank you. Yeah, Jack, this tragic incident in Charleston, I guess there's a reason why Dylan Roof chose Emmanuel AME Church, right? I mean, it really speaks to the power of the black churches in the South.
Yeah, I mean, Emmanuel AME, you got to remember, actually has this long progressive history of advocating on behalf of black voices. I mean, it was burned down in 1822 for its involvement in a black slave revolt. And it, by all indications, it looks like Dylan Roof chose that church precisely because it was kind of the epicenter of a lot of African American spiritual movements. I mean, it in the Southeast is where percentage-wise a lot of African Americans live. Like some of the highest percentages of African Americans compared to other races are in the Southeast, and so the churches are a strong component of that. And it looks like he specifically targeted that city.
So he knew the church. He knew its history. He knew its importance in the community.
We don't know for sure, but it seems pretty clear that seemed he in his manifesto that may or may not have been penned by him. It seems like that was the implication. Yeah.
The reports I've seen also indicate that. So he goes into the church. He asks for the pastor, who's now just starting this Bible service study. He's invited to sit down and join them, and he does. But at one of his statements, he said he almost changed his mind because the people were so nice to him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, which
really speaks to who these people were and what they're all about.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he hadn't. Of
course.
And at the end of the day, it was like by the time he arrived there, the story is he was welcomed into a Bible study that he sat at for an hour. For all of his hatred, for all of his messages of vitriol, the community itself painted the opposite image both during the event and ever since. This is a community that welcomed him into their Bible study, and after they killed their own parishioners, were forgiving him within days. I mean, it just invalidates all of his claims for hatred and for bigotry.
That part is absolutely devastating to me when you hear how he sat there for the whole hour. And as you said, they welcomed him in. Like, what a way to go out.
Yeah.
Obviously we wish this hadn't happened, but to go out in that way, in such a strong way. But, any one of us as 3 white guys could walk into a black church and we would be welcomed the same way. I know you've been, I've been. These are places that are, they're so serious about their religion, and yet they are so welcoming to other people and outsiders from that community. And to think that he actually had the thought to not do it makes me sick. Yeah. It makes me sick. Yeah. But again, it shows the power of these people, that this is the way that they died. By extending that friendship and that fellowship to this guy for the time before he killed them.
And there's nothing like, at least in my experience, a religious service in a black church. Boy, you come alive. I belonged to First AME in Los Angeles under the great Reverend Chip Murray when I was doing television in Los Angeles, and I joined that church, and people were so welcoming, and they were doing such wonderful work, and I went there the night of the Rodney King riots, and the mayor was there. Everybody, there was sort of people kind of converged on that church because it was the place to be. Just like It's funny. I also belong to Glide Methodist Church, which was not an AME church, but Glide Methodist Church, predominantly a black church in San Francisco when I was living there as well. Same thing. The night of the the Martin Luther King assassination, the church just filled automatically. It's where people kind of went. You know, it's the center of their life, as I'm sure Emmanuel AME Church is in Charleston. So this church, what happens now? They pick up and get a new pastor and move forward, I guess, huh?
I mean,
that's their tradition, as you pointed out.
Yeah, I mean, there's the greatest tragedy here is that this isn't the first time this has happened. This isn't the first time that black churches have been attacked by people for racist motivations.
Birmingham, everybody was remembering right away, of course.
Obviously. And, you know, one of the things that Martin Luther King said at the eulogy for the girls who were killed in the famous Alabama bombing is that, you know, one of the first things that we need to do is, one, mourn, and then also evaluate what sorts of systems and ideas help create these kinds of murderers. And I know that seems to have come through in a lot of the sermons that were preached this weekend, both at AME and throughout the Southeast. You know, I'm originally from South Carolina. That's my home state.
Oh, another one.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. Charlestonian.
Oh, okay. I'm from Aiken.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
But this is, you know, it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and and there are people that are near and dear to my heart, as I'm sure it's yours as well.
Absolutely.
And
so should they take down the Confederate flag?
Absolutely. I have no reservations about that. I mean, the arguments that I've had since I was a kid about whether or not it was a symbol of bigotry, the idea of heritage, not hate, those are ridiculous arguments. I mean, like, there's like a logical reality, which is that the Confederate flag is a symbol of disunion and like it's a symbol of treason, and there's no reason to fly it next to the American flag, which is, you know, I don't care how you look at it. If you secede from the Union and start shooting federal troops, that's a treasonous act. But more importantly, this has historically been a symbol for racist motivated acts throughout American history, and there's no reason for it to stay there. And actually, my family was pretty involved in the 90s during the first debate about this, or whether to take it down, where we took it from the top of the State House to in front of it, which I guess is technically progress, but you have to like walk by it now to get into the State House, and they should absolutely take it down. And I'm really encouraged to see the amount of energy that seems to be around the idea of taking it down.
Looks like we finally might have reached the point.
I mentioned this MoveOn.org petition. It now has 500,000 signatures to take the Confederate flag off of the grounds of the South Carolina Capitol.
And if you want to sign up, you go to MoveOn.org.
Yeah, I'll tweet out the link at BP Show. But yeah, if you MoveOn.org, it has it too. Yeah.
All right. So speaking about sermons, you mentioned sermons yesterday at Emmanuel AME. Among Catholic sermons yesterday, people were watching to see how many priests and how many bishops would pick up the Pope's call to be talking about climate change. We'll talk to Jack Jenkins about that when we come back here right after the break. Chime in if you want at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Kiona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Kiona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Kiona took me to Hamrogar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go now, 26 minutes after the hour. Again, Jen Bendry, White House and congressional reporter for Huffington Post here for the next half hour. Finishing up with Jack Jenkins from Think Progress, thinkprogress.org, of course. And yes, Igor Volsky will be here tomorrow for his weekly hit here on the Bill Press Show. So, Jack, I have to ask you about what do you think will be the impact of, no matter what Rick Santorum says, on Pope Francis speaking out on climate change?
I mean, it's difficult to gauge in specificity. However, here's the thing. He writes this 200-page encyclical that specifically mentions climate change, that specifically says that it's caused by human action and that we need to do something about it. Now you've got Jeb Bush, squirming around trying to say that Pope Francis should stay out of politics, even though a month ago he said the exact opposite while he was at Liberty University.
Wow. Yeah.
And Santorum trying to dodge it, and you've got other Catholic candidates on the Republican side.
Marco Rubio.
Absolutely. And so now it's an interesting thing in American politics where I don't think they really have a good framework for how to deal with this. Because, lest we forget, in September, Pope Francis is coming to the United States, and he was invited by Republicans to address this joint session of Congress.
I love it.
And there's no way he's not going to talk about climate change.
You know he is.
And so you've got over 30 Catholic Republicans in the House and Senate who are denying climate change. You're going to have to sit there and listen to the Pope tell them, no, guys, it's real, and I'm going to invoke faith to tell you to do something about it. So I think moving forward, there's no...
And it's immoral not to do anything about it.
And he specifically shuts down conservative arguments that, one, are actually in the Republican Party platform that try to cite faith as the justification for undue consumption of resources. And so I think he adds a huge moral voice to this. So looking forward, I don't see how this doesn't become way more energized for the climate movement and doesn't put a lot of Republicans back on their heels to seriously rethink their positions on this.
It's a powerful new voice in this argument. And again, leading up also to the December summit on climate change. Jack, great fun having you in the studio. Thanks so much for coming in.
That's right.
You can follow him always at thinkprogress.org. Jen Bakery next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it. 33 minutes after the hour now. It is The Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital. And we're brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees. Yes, the good men and women, members of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, proud to work for America every day, keeping the federal government going, not just here in Washington, but around the country, all the agencies we depend upon. And you can find out more about all their good work at their website, afge.org. The Congress is back in session today with a lot on their plate, and President Obama is back in the White House getting back into action on the issues that he has yet unresolved. And following him both at the White House and in the Congress, Jen Bendry from Huffington Post. You're busy jumping back and forth between the two. Hi, Jen. Nice to see you.
Hi, Bill.
Everything good? You keeping up with all the movements?
I'm doing my best.
At both ends?
There's a lot going on, but I'm doing my best.
So how about it? President Obama goes out to California and just decides, well, yeah, while I'm out here, I might as well take a few hours off and go down to Palm Springs and play a little golf. And he gets caught up in the middle of the drought controversy. What's he doing on a golf course where they waste so much water?
I know, that was a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Because he plays golf all the time, and he's in California where clearly, people have gotten flack for golf courses using up lots of water.
Especially in the desert, Palm Springs, where there are more golf courses than anywhere else and where they use twice as much water, residents of Palm Springs, as any other part of California. Yeah, so I thought it was funny that Eric Schultz, deputy press secretary, and others were sort of defending, oh, well, this golf course is doing everything it can to save water. Right?
I saw that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I don't think he was expecting that question.
No.
So, yeah, he said something about certain golf courses doing the best they can to try to preserve water, which how do you cut corners with preserving water at a golf course in the desert?
You don't. You don't. That's how. You don't.
No.
You don't have a golf course in the desert.
Right. I was going to say. Right. You start at the beginning, which is the desert is not where golf courses belong, unless you have one that's just sand. All sand. No, there are no sand
traps. Is there such a thing?
There's
a solid sand trap golf course?
I've played enough golf with you to know that you do pretty well in that. You're finding the sand on that golf course.
Well, I do well getting in, but not getting out.
Not getting out.
But all right, so one of the things the president, I'm sure, is at the top of his agenda when he comes back, Jen Bendry, is the trade issue. So, first round it was defeated in the Senate. Then they brought it back and passed it. Then it goes to the House. First round, the Fast Track Authority defeated. Then they were able to get it passed. Now it's back in the Senate. So what happens now? Is the president going to eventually get what he wants?
It's looking like he will. The biggest obstacle at this point for him would be if Democrats in the Senate decided that they don't like the way this is going, and they don't like the fact that Fast Track has been separated from trade assistance, which is a piece of all of this that Democrats really like, and usually they go together, but now they're being split apart for strategic reasons by Republicans. So I think at this point, the only thing that could jam the overall trade agenda for Obama is if Democrats in the Senate decide, we're going to jam this again, we're going to vote against, we're going to filibuster the Fast Track Authority bill because we want a better deal on the way we're pushing this all through. Because once they pass, if they agree to let this go through in the Senate, that means that it goes straight to the president's desk and signed. And that's without the trade assistance package that's usually part of it. And if that's what Democrats want, it's possible that Republicans could block that from passing because they've been separated.
Right. They've been separated. And Republicans are saying, well, don't worry, we'll get to trade assistance down the road and let you vote on that down the road so you can get that, but you just can't get it like right now.
Right. They're saying,
trust me.
In essence, trust me. And there is some reason to not necessarily trust them. I would say in one case, Mitch McConnell has promised certain Democrats that he would give them a vote on the Exim Bank, which expires at the end of, I think, this month, maybe next month.
Yes, this month.
They never got that vote. And I'm not sure if they're feeling they got burned in that agreement. But if he didn't follow through on that, and now he's saying again, just trust me, I'll bring up TAA again and it will pass. I'm not sure. There's a few key Democrats in the Senate right now who aren't talking.
Right.
So it's unclear if they've got some strategy to try to slow this down again.
So in the end, it looks like, I agree with you, that the president's going to get what he wants by making a deal with McConnell and Boehner and leaving the Democratic leadership in the dust, right? And really going against the majority of Democrats in the House and in the Senate. Where does that leave him for the rest of his term? Is this a permanent rupture, or is it just kind of everybody agrees, okay, on this one issue we disagree?
Well, there are some Democrats who like what he's doing, and they support the fast track.
28 in the House.
In the House. But the House is predominantly Republicans, and progressives typically don't like this. So the progressives are the ones who aren't voting for it. But the Senate is more important because because they can filibuster. So they have the ability to block this if they want to. But I don't think there's enough Democrats in there who are willing to just jam this whole thing again, because they like trade. By and large, many of them like trade. The Republicans want this, and I suspect this is going to go through, and there might be some grumbling, but it will go through. And some Democrats will be a little sore with the president for working with the Republican leaders and going around them to get this done. But I mean, you've already seen Nancy Pelosi, who's maybe public enemy number one for Obama on this issue. They've already made nice, at least publicly. Maybe they're griping behind the scenes, but they both lavished each other with praises.
Right. It was potentially a little awkward moment in San Francisco at Tom Steyer's house when the president was there for a DCCC event the day after, just about, right, that she had trashed his fast track authority in the House and killed it. And he said, 98% of the time, we don't agree on everything. Ha, 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 right? And Nancy blushed, and then she said, yeah, and then he praised on him. So, yeah.
I think they'll get over it.
They're grown-ups.
They are grown-ups. I think ultimately it's the progressives in Congress who aren't Nancy Pelosi who are going to remember this and be irritated.
On another issue where probably we're not going to see any action at all, or not even any effort in Congress, is on the issue of gun safety, and not even after what happened in Charleston. I was stunned when the president came out last week, or surprised, I guess, or disappointed, certainly, when he came out after the Charleston shooting, and there was not another call for gun safety legislation, not another call for banning assault weapons or automatic pistol or whatever. Not even a call for a national conversation on guns this time. Was just basically the president said over and over again, at some point we're going to have to deal with this. And that seems to be the attitude in Congress.
That was the most defeated I think I've seen the president be on this issue. And no doubt that it's been an uphill battle the whole time he's been in the White House, but he's never come out and straight up said, well, we should do something, but the political will isn't there, so shame on us. And then dropped the mic and walked away. He did. But it's because he's said this so many times before. There is something like, this was the 14th speech he's given since a shooting.
Yeah, 14th.
Right after a shooting. And what do you do if you're him? I mean, you just reword the same speech over and over again. And ultimately, Congress has to do something. And if you thought there was little motivation in Congress to deal with gun control in the last 7 years, right now it is at the lowest I've seen in a while. I mean, you would have thought that something would have come of Newtown.
Yeah,
that's right. Maybe the worst scenario you can imagine: a guy walking into an elementary school and gunning down little kids.
What else could it take?
But that got people's attention. But what changed? They had a vote. They had a vote in the Senate on background checks being strengthened, and it barely failed. And ever since then, it's fallen off people's radars. And to your point, what you were saying at break, even the Democrats the handful of Democrats who have been pushing this issue are pretty quiet right now, because I think maybe like Obama, they're just like, we're outnumbered with people who don't want to deal with this, and we don't know what else to do.
Nothing from Chuck Schumer, this has always been his issue. Nothing from Joe Manchin. He and Pat, isn't it Toomey? Or is it,
Pat Toomey.
Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania, who were the co-authors of the legislation you mentioned. Neither of them said anything. In the House, haven't heard anything from any. Mike Thompson, who was in charge of this issue for the Democrats, nothing from him either.
He used to have little get-togethers with reporters to try to sit down and they'd have crackers and wine and get us talking about gun control. And I don't remember. I mean, it's been at least 2 years since that's happened. It's completely off the radar of Congress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The one thing they will come back to is mental health issues. That's what they always want to. They'll say after shootings, we need to do something about mental health issues, and it's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? There's just, I don't know. People don't want to talk about guns. They want to pivot to something else. Even in this case in Charleston, there's a lot of focus now not on the racism piece of all of this. It's the mental health condition of the shooter and other things related. But don't talk about guns and don't talk about race. Just talk about mental health issues, which obviously that's part of it. But you can't ignore the other pieces too.
Now, here is something that Congress might very well have to deal with. I want to talk to you about on the other side of the break. A week from today, next Monday, June 29, I have a ticket. I'm going to be in the Supreme Court when they make their final announcements on cases for this term. And unless they do it this week, most likely next Monday is when they'll announce their decision on same-sex marriage and on the Affordable Care Act. What happens then? Jen Bendry here from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com, covers the White House and Congress. Here with us, love to have you join the conversation, 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Things you and your family can do to live a healthier lifestyle. Here's 20 of them. Eat less, eat slower, eat smarter, eat your fruits and veggies. Stop eating.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes now before the top of the hour. Here we go. Monday, June 22nd. This half hour, getting up to date on what's happening at the White House and in the Congress with Jen Bendry, who covers both for Huffington Post. So with the Supreme Court coming up on, particularly for the Affordable Care Act, right? This challenge to people who live in states where there's no state exchange, therefore the only way they can get health care is through the federal exchange, and the only way they can afford it is to have a subsidy. That's the challenge in front of the Supreme Court. There's with a group of conservatives who are saying, no, the law clearly says, one little phrase, you have to have a state exchange to qualify for a subsidy. Two questions. What do you think the court's going to do? And if they throw out these subsidies for 8 million people, what will Congress do?
I have no idea what they're going to do, but if I were a betting person, which I am, I would bet that they are going to support the healthcare law, if not for anything but the fact that undoing it at this point, they know will cause a lot of disarray and harm to people who are now relying on this for their healthcare. But I mean, they could vote against it, but I think, it's harder to dismantle something than it is to prevent it from being built in the first place. Mm-hmm. So this is now how many years? 4 years in?
Oh, no, we're 5 or 6.
Is it? When was it signed?
I was there.
I was too.
I think, in the East Room. And I've written about it too. But at least
5 years.
It's
at
least
been years.
5 years, yeah.
So,
and 8 million people now have subsidies under federal exchanges. And the reason they do is because the governors, 5 years, the governors in those states refuse to adopt a state exchange.
Right. So, I mean, I have to think that even some of the conservative justices who are opposed to the program itself, they have to weigh the effects of getting rid of this at this point, years in. I mean, would they propose an alternative in their decision? Is that even their responsibility? No. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not.
So it would just kick people off of their health coverage, their subsidies for their health coverage.
Right. I before you move to the second question, I agree with you. I think that's what the court will do. And there's another argument, too, which is, in fact, you could quote Justice Scalia as saying you have to look at the broad context of a piece of legislation. And when you look at the 1,000 pages of the Healthcare Act, and you talk to everybody, Republican and Democrat, who had anything to do with shaping it, not many Republicans did, but you talk to them, they all say their intention was that everybody in every state should be able to get the subsidies.
Well, and what I don't understand is if so much of this
might have been a little drafting error, but it was only 6 little words in a 1,000-page document.
And what a piece of this I don't understand is the people who actually wrote the bill, members of Congress, have said since this came up that they literally explained what their legislative intent was when they wrote this bill. So why? I know that the legal world is complicated, but surely that counts for something, that the people who wrote the bill can just say straight up what their intent was.
You would think. So let's say they do go in the opposite direction that you and I believe they'll go. With suddenly, you've got 8 million people out there who have just lost their health care because they can't afford it without a subsidy. What does Congress do then? Just walk away?
Well, this is sort of the funny.
What are the Republicans in
This
Congress
is the funny / sad piece of it all, is that ever since this became law, Republicans have said numerous times that they are going to repeal and replace this law. Mm-hmm. It's been 5 years. It's been longer than 5 years since they were debating this bill. They haven't come up with. Nobody has produced something that would repeal and replace this. And I'm talking. If I could have a piece of paper in front of me for every time a Republican member of Congress said that they were going to repeal and replace this, it would be like to the ceiling. But there's no one, because it's too hard. It's such a complicated process writing a major healthcare law like this that even they can't do it. And Paul Ryan has relied on some of the same gimmicks to say that they won't use federal money, even connected to Medicaid. He's using the same dollars to fund his alternative that Republicans give Democrats grief for the way they're funding this. So they don't really have an alternative. And that's what I don't. It seems like a massive gaping hole in all of this. If the court strikes it down, there's no alternative. Nobody has an alternative. The people who like the law and don't like it. So it's this the huge question mark.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think I can't picture the court striking this down.
Which is why I'll bet privately the Republicans are saying, "Oh, please! I hope the court doesn't go that way, right? I hope the court."
Yeah, they don't have a plan B. They don't have something after all this talk of repealing and replacing it, and they still say that. They still say it, and they don't have any alternative.
That's why we're glad you're there, Jen. So you can call them on it. Jen Bendry from Huffington Post. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Anytime.
Stay cool. It's going to be, 90 degrees?
It's going to be hot today.
It's going to be hotter than that.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Pretty hot.
And that wraps it up for us, except for Parting Shot coming up next here. So stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale, 1906, the court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 19. Michigan Supreme Court says the business is organized and carried on primarily for the profit. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, speaking at the White House the morning after the mass murder in Charleston, President Obama lamented that given the power of the NRA, there's little we can do about gun control. Maybe he's right about that, unfortunately, but there is something we can do about the Confederate flag. Take it down and put it in a museum of ugly racism where it belongs. It's no coincidence that the Confederate flag, which flew over the state capitol in South Carolina until 2000 and now flies at a Civil War monument in front of the Capitol, also appeared on the website of Dylan Roof. The Confederate flag is not, as some Southerners still insist, a symbol of Southern heritage. Today, it's a symbol of hating black people simply because they're black. Just ask Dylan Roof. On that Capitol grounds, it's the Confederate flag. Now is the time to take it down once and for all. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Monday, June 22nd. Stay cool. And come back and see us again tomorrow, because we'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.